Members of this committee are present in the chamber, and those members will be voting on proposals this evening. Other members of the council are also in attendance and/or participating via MS Teams and can take part in any discussions, ask questions, but cannot vote. Your attention is drawn to agenda item 1, which sets out the guidance on how meetings will be conducted, including the ground rules. Before we start with the formal business, we will confirm attendance of voting members by doing a roll call.
If when I call your name, you can confirm that you are present, please. Councillor Hudson.
Here.
Councillor Tunstall. Councillor Bennison. That's an apology. Councillor Crisp.
Present.
Councillor Dalton.
Present.
Councillor Dean. That may be an apology. Councillor Hoskins.
Present.
We've had apologies from Councillor Lark. Substitute is Councillor Brown.
Present.
Councillor McDermott.
Present.
Councillor Palmer.
Present.
Councillor Pilgrim.
Present.
Councillor Rhodes.
Present.
We've had apologies from Councillor Tatton, substituted by Councillor Bridge.
Present.
I can confirm we have 11 voting members in the chamber.
Thank you. As has been indicated, we have 2 substitutes this evening. These councillors have the same rights as the ordinary member of the committee for whom they are substituting for. Item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any members in the chamber who have a declaration of interest? No. Okay, item 5, minutes. To confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of July are set out on pages 13 to 17. That all agreed? Thank you. Item 6. We are very lucky to have Matthew Scott here, the Kent Police and Crime Commissioner. He's going to provide us an update on the Rural Task Force and respond to questions we may have. Thank you.
Yours works slightly different to the ones I'm used to. Thank you very much for the invitation to meet you all this evening and talk specifically about our Rural Crime Task Force. I have a number of updates for you around the work that the task force are doing, how they're structured and what the future looks like for the Rural Task Force. But just to provide you with a reminder of the role of the Police and Crime Commissioner, where rural crime sits in my list of priorities and how strategically we're looking at this issue across the whole of Kent. I begin with a quick summary there. So the role of the Police and Crime Commissioner is to hold the Chief Constable to account to ensure that they are delivering against the priorities which I set for them on behalf of the public. I have to produce what's called a police crime plan, which sets out what those priorities are. We do that in conjunction with residents, businesses and community groups. We are currently consulting on the 2025 Police and Crime Plan. There are copies of the survey here at the end of the desk for you, should you wish to take some away, with the obligatory QR code, as everything has days on it. So please do share that. It contains questions around your feelings of trust of Kent Police, how well you think they're performing in the current circumstances. It provides you with opportunities to rank which crimes you think are most important, and that does include rural crime, environmental crime, including eye tipping as well. So please do take copies of that survey away if you've not already completed one. I am also responsible for the finances of Kent Police, the element which your council takes to Kent Police, but also the funding we receive from central government, commission services for victims of crime. Actually, one of the biggest areas of work that we have as PCCs worked last year, supporting 102,000 people in Kent. However, it's not the area of work which a lot of people focus on because victims of time focus on the police. But a substantial amount of the work that we do as PCCs is actually supporting victims of crime and then working in partnership with safety partnerships. I chair the Kent Criminal Justice Board, also chair of the Serious Violence Prevention Partnership for Kent well. So lots of strategic level meetings dealing with the issue which we need to address. On top of that, I've established a rural policing board, which met for the first time weeks ago, senior representation from police. It also includes the representative agencies such as Farmers Union, the Country Land Business Association, as well as others who have an interest in the rural community, the British Association of Education, for example. So that has been established to take a strategic look and create partnerships between the rural communities and the police, which have fallen by the wayside in years. What I am not is the Chief Constable, so there is a very clear separation of powers between the PCC and the Chief Constable. I hire and fire the Chief Constable. I hold them to account. However, I do not decide on a day-to-day basis where police officers go and what they do. So as much as I'd love to make you all promises about giving you extra officers this evening, that's not within my gift as the PCC. That's the responsibility of the Chief Constable. However, we work together to make sure that the needs of Kent are being met in how allocated. So that's the strategic role of the Police and Crime Commission. Within my police and crime plan, as things stand, and as it has always done, rural crime has been one of the guiding principles of it, i.e. crime is important no matter where it takes place. The urban, coastal and rural communities should all receive the same level of service no matter where you live in the county, but actually reflecting the fact that rural communities often feel more isolated and that actually that needs to be reflected in how resources dealt with. You may have heard police officers come and sit here and tell you everything is done on a threat, risk and harm basis, or the THRIVE principles as they're actually called. They forget to mention the IVE bit on the end, isolation, vulnerability, exploitation. So it's making sure that rural communities who are more isolated, who have experienced the departure of many private sector organisations, banks, public sector organisations too, they still get the support that they need from rural policing. That's not going to change. Rural policing will always be a priority for me, so we will make sure that rural communities do feel supported going forward. In terms of our operational response to rural crime, members may know we have, as I've been asked to come and talk to you about today, the Rural Task Force. That is a team of dedicated officers who are responsible for specialist rural crime offences. That will include things like fly tipping, but wildlife crime, animal offences against animals, poaching, lamping, those things like that. The things that farm thefts. Well, they deal very specifically with offences which affect rural communities and rural businesses. In recent years, we've been able to expand the size of the rural policing team. It is led by an inspector. It has 2 sergeants, 12 PCs. It now has 7 PCSOs. And going back only a couple of years ago, there was 1 sergeant. Been an allocation of growth within the last few years. They are broken down by division. So you have here covering this part of the world 4 PCs and SOs who are dealing specifically with those rural offences. On top of that, as you may know, the new neighbourhood policing model means that we have replaced your PCSO with a PC. Now have PCs who are also covering those areas. They are working together with rural communities in the same way that they would work with urban communities. So not only have your rural task force officers, but there are also beat officers as well to support them. The function of the PCSOs has been very much around crime prevention. They've been doing a lot of work, in particular around property marking, which is a significant deterrent to the communities who steal these items, but also helping us with recovery. And I'll give you a really good example of why property marking is so important. You may have heard the recent story of a significant cache of stolen goods, power tools, caravans, quad bikes, etc. We are having a significant job trying to reunite the owners of that equipment with their item, because it's not property marked, it's there's not smart water on it, so it's very difficult for those owners to prove that that black and yellow power tool is their black and yellow, same as everything. So that's why the property marking is so important, that we can deter, we can find people with their equipment back relocated. That's that hall we found, we estimate it's worth over £1 million. 3,500 power tools. Part of that. So that's why the PCSO's role is going to be so important. In terms of communication, there are farm watch groups which have been established by the rural policing team. Every district has one where farms and the police are there together in local WhatsApp groups sharing intelligence. It's not a crime reporting mechanism. So as we always say, please don't report crime on Facebook, don't report crime on WhatsApp, report crime via the proper methods. But it has been really helpful for farms and police to go, I've just seen this white transit van go past my farm. Please be aware, other people saying we know to look. The rural team go, actually, we're after that one, so we'll come. Well, really important way of sharing intelligence. They're trying to do more to promote the work that they're doing. One of the things that very kindly have shared for me is the Rural Matters magazine. In there is the contact details for your rural policing team for this area. So please do, if you have any issues in your areas where you are rural, specific to rural crime offences, please do make contact. They are there to support, they are there to help, and they will do so. But it gives you a flavour of some of the things that the rural policing team have been doing and some of the results that they have been achieving. There are 4 main campaigns that the rural police are running at the moment, and these will be running in West Kent in your area as well. It being the time of the year for it, as we've just had, Operation Galileo being one for the year, is around coaching and hair coursing, where they are doing their best to get involved in those activities. We have a partnership across the east of England where we are using different powers to bring those offenders to justice, using community protection notices like we do for other things, is proving to be quite successful in acting as a deterrent in some parts of the county. And they will go out regularly and do patrols. They will take their drones and they will make sure that they are keeping on top of that issue. I know that off-road motorbikes has been a big concern to many. Unfortunately, that is not a problem isolated to this part of the world. Since the pandemic, it seems to be a problem everywhere. People who are using off-road bikes to be causing antisocial behaviour, destroying crops, causing a nuisance with both noise as well. We have a campaign called Operation Japan, where we are working jointly with Sussex Police, using their off-road motorbike provision in order to pursue and detect offenders. They are seizing those vehicles where they're able to do so, issuing them with Section 9 notices. So if they get caught again, those vehicles can be seized. There is a lot of work going on here in those campaigns being run as often as they do. You'll be aware of Operation Assist as well. The force does run those joint campaign days with local authorities where they will target waste carriers, do waste carrier licensing checks. Some councils not here moved away from those because they're not catching anybody. Well, they've been so successful that all the waste carriers are going out with correct paperwork. I would say that the Helian principle that the absence of crime is a measure of success would be correct circumstance. And then finally is the Rural Safer Streets programme, which is one of my key pledges. A lot of the funding we receive from central government is all usually targeted at urban areas because that's usually where the highest need and the highest harm is. So often rural communities are missing out from substantial sums of investment from central government. So I've decided to take it further locally and establish the Rural Safer Streets programme. There are 4 strands to it. Operation Innovate, which is focused on prevention, enforcement and detection of farm machinery thefts, plant thefts, trying to stop plant and tractors from being stolen, but also trying to stop them from being moved out of the county. That is being done in conjunction with local farmers, but also beat officers and other teams within police. That is helping us detect an awful lot more theft of property now. So we're starting to see more recoveries, and that has been really useful. We've invested in extra property marking kits, so we are able to deploy our PCSOs more in order to do that property marking, which I said earlier on was very much important. We are investing in extra drone capability so that they will be able to deploy drones in more situations and increase the training which is available. And then finally, they're giving stickers to farms and farmers to put on the back of their vehicles to encourage police to stop them if they're seen driving off. Very unlikely a farm and their tractor or their plant or their vehicle is going to be out after 10 p.m. It is its problem. Therefore, it's important that these teams do stop that vehicle if they see that and do a proper stop. So that's a summary of their activities at the moment. In terms of performance, we are seeing reduction times in rural areas. That is a positive, but I know that's not everyone's experience. I was with farms on Monday, and they are experiencing the same problems that we hear time and time again from lots of other communities. Well, they're not reporting it. Don't know what's going on because they've had an experience in the past where the police haven't. That's what we need to fix. It's about breaking that, not reporting, police not sure that when the public do report things that the police do act on, do follow the lines of inquiry and they see that something is being done. That's one of our key focuses this year, about pursuing relevant lines of inquiry, solving crime and giving victims justice. We are seeing some improvements. We are seeing more people being brought to justice, but we are not seeing enough yet. So that is a work in progress, and that will continue going forward. I hope, that is a helpful summary of rural policing in Kent or rural policing across, and I'm happy to take.
Does anyone have any questions of that? Councillor Anna.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. Hi, Matthew. Thanks for coming in tonight. I haven't reported anything through to the police for some time, but on the occasion that I have, it's been incredibly difficult to get through by phone, for sure. And even online, it can prove to be quite arduous. I just wonder if things have improved or whether there's anything in the pipeline to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you. I will resolutely acknowledge that our telephone call handling performance about 2 years ago was a 4-letter word. Was so bad, particularly on 101. So this time 2 years ago, about 55% 101 just gave up. We literally just put the phone down. That's not acceptable. The average waiting time across the 24-hour period, and I stress a 24-hour period, so this even includes your off-peak time, 15 minutes and 20 seconds. Now, that includes our off-peak. I know it takes longer than that to get through your GP, but that is still not good enough. So imagine what it was like at peak times. The Chief Constable and I worked really hard together on this, and they give force credit for this. Not only have our 999 performance improved substantially, but nearly every single call is now answered in less, which is what you want to see from a 999 performance. Our 101 calls, the number of people who are giving up now is less than 4%. Our average call waiting time in the last month I had figures for was 43 seconds. We have improved our call handling performance quite substantially because we've put extra resources into the team. We've improved many things about it. So there is a success in there. The online thing is a source of frustration as well, because the problem with the reporting system which has been set up, it's a system called Single Online Home. So it's one police website for every force. It's all standardized, it's all homogeneous, etc. Great in theory, but every time you go on there, you fill out all your details every single time. You can't just log in and put your details in and automatically populate. Not only have you got to go through the stress of remembering all the things that you've been through, I remember what they look like, they're evident. You then have to go through all of the questions which don't seem relevant at the time, but we have to, by law, collect. So it just adds extra time to the process. We're trying desperately to convince them to allow people to do more of that. But there will be new technology coming online, hopefully in the next 18 months. We're investing in victim journey, where it is, and it's a sign of where police IT is, that you can sign in and create an account on everything and track everything right down to when your Deliveroo is 100 yards outside your door. You still have to phone 101 to get an update on your crime. That doesn't seem right to me. That's totally. So whilst you're not going to be able to track that officer to within 100 yards of your door, the important thing is you'll be able to track your crime. You'll be able to contact them more easily, more directly. You'll be able to find out more. And that's really important, because as victims of crime, you have rights to information. They should be updating you days under the victim code. So we are investing in further technology to make the online experience well, because, say, policing stuck in some of its.
Brilliant. Anyone else got any questions?
Thank you. We might be stuck in 1995, but in 1995 we used to have a Bobby on the beat, probably, and that's something we desperately miss.
In 1995, crime was very different. So in the last 30 years, the job of the police has changed quite substantially, and you'll have seen it within your world as well, where almost every part of the public sector seems to have become social work in some way, and that's even before you consider how digital crime has affected the world. So fraud and cybercrime, 52% of all crime. Domestic abuse numbers have more than doubled. 10. Sexual violence has been on the increase as well. More people felt comfortable coming forward to report those things. We have been picking up the pieces for the NHS on mental health from crisis, where the NHS have not been in a position to support those individuals. Stalking and harassment only became in 2015, and we have those every single year. I mentioned domestic abuse already, but 1 in 5 crimes that Kent deals with is the nature of crime which Kent Police are dealing with changed substantially in the last 30 years, which has meant that we have moved our policing allocation to be dealing with need opposed to demand. When you look at what it is they have to deal with, there is a substantial amount that goes alongside it. You need to protect the victim, to pursue the perpetrator. You need to do the safeguarding referrals, which all go along. Are there any children in the house? You need to liaise with the schools, make sure they're getting support under Compass. Are they living in a safe place? Do we need to provide extra support? So there is a significant amount of things which policing deal with in 2024, which are very different to 1990. But that said, we're trying to get back to more of a model of Bobby on the beat. The neighbourhood policing model, yes, it's been brought around a necessity to make savings, hence why we lost the PCSOs. But we've now put a PC back on the beat in every single one of those areas where you had a PCSO. They are out there now doing the community meetings. They are doing the parish and meetings. They should be tending at least quarterly. And if they're not, please email your local inspector and say, where's our beat? They should be attending at least quarterly if they're not providing reports. So you can have that one. Email your local CSU, make sure that they are attending your meetings. They are putting out updates on My Community Voice. They are there detecting crime in their local communities and working with businesses. So we're trying to get back to that model, but what I would say is that the needs which the police are dealing with in 2024 are very different to what they were dealing with certainly in 1994, but even 10.
Okay,
On over to
Steve Crisp.
Thanks, Chair. Just as an overall view, ultra-processed food, there's just been a report out, and it's interesting you mentioned 1995 because that's around about the time that ultra-processed food sort of started to come out, and now it appears that most of it is kind of poison and been poisoning our kind of youngsters and us for quite a few years, and the knock-on effect on that is probably what you're dealing with. Hence the increase in sort of people with mental deficiencies, that sort of thing, mainly because of the chemicals that we've been pumping into them. And I just wanted to make that point that, one thing, there's always a result of something from something else. So, that's kind of what you're dealing with. I just wanted to make that point. Thanks.
It's an interesting one. Actually, Ultra Processed People is a book on my reading list at the moment that I've not actually got round to yet. So I will have a look at that one. Actually, if I were to say there was one thing in particular which has changed people and almost rewired them over the last 15 years, it's smartphones. If you look at and particularly amongst our young people, if you look at mental health episodes, self-harm episodes amongst the under 18s since 2012, they have skyrocketed. 163% increase for girls, 145% increase for boys. And that you can chart it back directly to 2012 when you started to get the front-facing cameras, like buttons on social media, and the constant pressure to be online and living people's lives online. The consequence of that is that people are more abusive, they are more threatening, they are more enabled now in the last 10, 15 years to commit crimes against each other, and we're seeing far too much of it coming because of social media and the use of smartphones. So one book I would encourage everyone to read is The Anxious Generation by a professor called Jonathan Haidt, and you will see exactly what problems we have caused for our young people in the last generation. Nice little book reading session. Okay. Book club.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously not a member of your committee, but I do understand what's happening in and around our rural areas. Bearing in mind, I've been a victim of this crime only of last weekend. I'm a farming background, by the way, and we do have a very efficient WhatsApp group. But what we're finding is that the group's very quick at potentially alerting each other to thefts, but by the time we all band together to actually get out there and see what's going on, sadly the perpetrators have fled very quickly. And again, so we were a victim last Saturday with a vehicle theft, and then on Monday evening at around 7:30, our local farm to us was broken into. But again, we were alerted and we were there, but we were just too late. So my question is, do you have any advice about villages trying to take measures to prevent or try and deter these criminals from coming to our villages? I've put it on the agenda for our local parish council. My idea, and you're probably going to school me at this, is to sort of ring fence our villages with ANPR cameras. I think that has two things. It could act as a deterrent. It also may well help with the huge number of fly tipping events that we get in and around Rootham, Stansted, Fairseat. But I'm just thinking what your thoughts are on that, and also whether you've got any other advice as to how villages can sort of help, not take on their own security as such, but certainly help with their own security measures and help deter. Your thoughts would be really welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I was at a farm on Monday who have invested in their own ANPR cameras. So there are businesses out there who are already doing this, support themselves, protect themselves CCTV is always a worthwhile investment. I've mentioned property marking as also an important deterrent because reduces the amount of places that they can sell it on. But what I can do, Robin, is we can get the rural team to come and see you to talk about this in more detail. They're the experts in crime prevention. So I've made a note of it, and I'll get one of the teams to come and see you.
Thank you very much.
Right, I think we're all questioned out. Thank you very much, Matthew, for coming on this evening. It's very useful.
Great stuff. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Right, we move on to item 7, which is key performance indicators. I'd like to ask Jeremy Whitaker to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Yes, this report sets out the corporate key performance indicators relating to communities and environment for Q2. So that's the period July to September of this year. Overall, number of KPIs are heading in the right direction, as you can see in the report under 5.2. Reported crime-based crimes have decreased a bit in Q2. Recycling and composting figures for Q1 are available and show recycling and composting rates have actually gone up to 51%. Fly tipping incidents still historically relatively high, but have dropped slightly in Q2. And another bit of good news is the completion of scheduled waste collections has remained at 100% for a third quarter in a row. There is one area of focus that's highlighted in the report relating to reported antisocial behaviour, as it was in the Q1 report previously. But I suppose what I would say about this is that as a result of greater community engagement, this sort of increase is not necessarily hugely surprising, given the and enabling measures to be put in place to address those antisocial behaviour issues that have been highlighted. I've also put a little bit in the report in terms of a review of performance management. Off the back of some of the discussions in Q1, I have tweaked a few bits, mostly in sort of Annex 2, where I've put in a bit more accessibility measures, so putting in symbols and also put something in about the status of each KPI. I probably haven't quite mastered the smiley or frowny face to a T quite yet, but hopefully I will do over time. In terms of some of the broader performance management review, that will be considered cabinet on the 12th of November. So there's no change as things stand from the Q1 reporting at this stage. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Jeremy. We have Franny.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to comment a little bit about the new format of the reports. I think it's very useful having the names of all the officers and members and everything involved at the beginning, but I was wondering why the recommendation comes before the report, because I have always understood that the recommendation is arrived at as a result of the report, not presupposing the report, if you see what I mean. So having it at the beginning seems a bit, I was about to say, put it in the rude way, seems the wrong way round. And then I just wanted to ask about the percentage of household waste, which we're celebrating being at 51%. But I note that the baseline is 51.6%. So do we really warrant a green arrow, or should it actually be a yellow one? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it did drop. Like, I haven't got the figure exactly in front of me, but I think it dropped to around 47.5%, 48%. So it's green in the sense that it's now heading back in the right direction. Obviously, I hope, you know, we all hope that continues. But I think the green is really just in terms of the trajectory of that KPI from the previous quarter. So in that sense, yes, it's sort of taken a dip previously, but now in terms of Q2, it's heading back in the right direction. So it's good news in that sense. In terms of the report structure, I think the thinking behind that was to have the recommendation at the front of the report to be for it to be sort of more visible and prominent within the report. But yeah, I'm working with the report template that I've got effectively.
Jeremy, does anyone else have any questions? Can I ask then that we note the report and acknowledge the good news and areas of focus? Agreed? Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8, and this is the review of fees and charges. Robert.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. And as members will see, that this report sets out the proposed fees and charges for mine and Eleanor's directorates, as outlined in section 1.1 of the report. And there are a number of officers, most notably Linda and David and myself here this evening, if you have any questions. The report recommends, subject to any comments from this committee, that the proposals be recommended to Cabinet for implementation at the start of the next financial year. Just very briefly to say that, as is always the case each year, the proposals have taken into account a set of guiding principles which members have previously approved, and these include areas such as reflecting the Council's strategic priorities, having regard for the medium-term financial strategy, and also looking to maximise income subject to market conditions. I don't intend to go through each charge, you'll be pleased to note, but I think it's just worthy, due to the level of income and number of subscribers, just to briefly mention the proposal for the garden waste subscriptions at section 5.1, where you'll see that the Council's current subscription is relatively low, currently at £53, representing a collection charge of only just over £2, £2.04. And looking at across the county, only 2 councils in Kent have a charge that is less than ours. And as members will be aware, we are in a partnership with Tunbridge Wells Council, and their charge is already at £60. Now, there is a break point in the contract, in the waste contract in 2027, and that's just what I would briefly like to alight on. And we are aware that there will be a significant financial impact on the council in terms of our waste collection arrangements. So primarily due to the market hardening significantly since the previous waste contract started in 2019 and since COVID. As a result of this, it's clear, and there will be a report to your next meeting of this committee on the contract, that the specification will need to be carefully considered, which as a result may have to reduce some areas and levels of service. So one option members do have available to them, which is included in this report this evening, is to consider increasing the cost of the garden waste subscription beyond what is already factored into the medium-term financial strategy to help mitigate against this rise. And just to give members sort of some of the headline costs that the waste contract currently costs the council over £4.2 million a year, including £1.5 million for refuse collection, £1 million on street scene, and dry recycling at 1.2 million. So it is a significantly large contract. So the proposal brought forward this evening is to take that collection charge to £2.31 collection, which equates to a charge of £60 per annum. That proposed increase, which is still considered to offer very good value for money and brings us in line with what will be the average charge across Kent, would generate additional income to the council of £150,000 above the current original estimate. Thank you, Chair, sorry.
I'll be a chairman, that's fine. Thanks, Robert.
I'll give you a smiley face. There we go.
Councillor Tanner.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, so thank you for letting me speak. I just really wanted to reiterate what Robert has said there, in so much as the new waste contract that's due to kick in 2027 is going to be eye-wateringly higher than the current arrangement that we have, and we have 2.4 million in reserve to cover any increase in the costs of that, but that's going to fall very short. The indications are that we're going to need significantly more than that to cover the cost of the waste contract, and the MTFS is going to have to be increased to mitigate the additional cost. So whatever we could gain from an increase in garden waste collections would be really, really helpful in helping to go towards the cost of that waste contract that's going to be so expensive. And I think really at £2 something per collection, it is still very good value for money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tanner. Councillor Bridge.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the concern about the council's finances and the fact that the waste contract will be coming up for renewal in a couple of years or so, and the terms of it will have to be reconsidered and changed. And I realise that £60 is a nice round number and in line with Tunbridge Wells. But we have to remember that it's our residents who are paying this money, and it's a rise of 13.21% at a time when annual inflation is running at around 2%. So there will be some of our residents who I think may have trouble affording that increase, and we should be mindful of that. Has any consideration been given to whether some of our residents might be tempted to fly tip their garden waste instead? And has any assessment been made of how many cancellations it may result in? Thank you.
Thank you. I can't see someone going to an awful lot of trouble to put their rancid garden grass cuttings in their car to go and tip it somewhere when they might as well just drive it to the waste recycling centre and do it for free. But there we go. To my mind, we have got an opportunity to help our residents further down the line. We've got an opportunity now, and I would think something like around £10 increase, so from £53 to £63 a year. And that would provide us with, it costs an extra, it's 2p a week, 4p a collection. When you've got cigarettes at 15 quid a packet, that is a comparison that just shows how small an amount of increase 4p is, because you can't buy anything for 4p anymore, not even the bus down the Pembury Road. That's just a suggestion. Councillor Palmer.
I think you've just said what I was going to say, Chair. When I see the queues outside Costa for coffees at over £4 a time, and people are buying them every single day. I think that actually just over less than £2.50 is a good place. It costs you more in fuel, getting your car cleaned and revolting. I think people who are going to fly tip are going to fly tip anyway. And that's a whole another issue, which, as you all know, I'm quite passionate about. But yeah, I think this is quite a reasonable price to pay for disposing of the garden waste. Thank you.
Councillor Hoskins.
Yes, thank you. Because there are vast queues outside coffee shops, does that actually mean, oh, okay, people are buying extra coffee, so we can stick prices up on everything? It's not the same people, is it? You know, I mean, I might go and buy a coffee, but I'm very lucky. I'm not in huge financial difficulties, although I might be after I've paid my dog's vet bills tomorrow. But those aren't the people we're trying to protect, are they? And also, to say it's 2p per collection or whatever assumes that people put their bins out every single time they're going to be collected throughout the year. And they don't. It's fairly seasonal, isn't it? So, you know, you might only actually have 6 collections in the year rather than the however many you're entitled to. I just find the arguments against a bit spurious, and I wonder whether the officer could come back, whether Robert could come back, please, to explain his reasoning so we can hear a non-political view. Thank you.
I'm not sure I'd classify my comments as a political view. I think I'm just talking common sense, but there we go. Robert.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think, you know, in fairness to the report, and David may wish to add something to this. I mean, we have laid it, we have laid all this out within the paper. I think it's very, we're trying to be forward thinking. We're looking at a problem which is going to arise, a major financial problem, as Councillor Tanner says, in the future. And we're looking to take some action that will help mitigate that and will put some less pressure on members of this committee in particular on having to look at service cuts within the specification to try and mitigate that cost. I think from a personal point of view, and I as you were, I've been here a long time and was here when it was introduced, I think our charge has always been significantly lower than others. I think I said in introduction that there's only 2 councils in the whole of the county that are lower than us. The current average price is £58, so we are way below that. And I think that, of course, it's quite right to look at sort of comparisons between different things that people may spend their money on. To me, though, the proposed cost of £2.31 per collection for someone to actually take your garden waste from your doorstep does offer, I think, exceptional value for money. So that would be my view.
Thank you. Councillor Dalton.
Thank you, Chairman. The new price of £60 proposed, I think, is very, very good value. I've always had a brand. Wouldn't be putting my garden waste in my car to take licensed dump. I think there is a possibility that we can sell that day because the amount of people that use them is quite considerable. One other further question, I understand it's coming in April, New Year. Is that correct? So the reason I've asked that question, I've got a brand new neighbour that's coming from Swale, and she asked about it. Said, I'm going to a meeting and check this. So currently it's still 53. Thank you very much.
You arguing? Yes, please, Councillor Brown.
Thanks very much, Madam Chairman.
I'm just substituting tonight, so it's been quite interesting to hear the debate on this. Obviously, we had the old green waste and cardboard collection scheme before we had the current contract. So I used to get my garden waste collected as part of the package. So I was a bit irritated when we switched over. But having said that, the current scheme that we've got is absolutely fantastic. You know, doorstep collection of all of our recyclables and garden waste and residual waste is excellent. And I think the value for money that we get from this contract is superb. Such a shame when we have to change contractor, and we know that's coming down the track in the future. So a small increase, I think, a small weekly increase, and I think you mentioned £63. I'm happy to second that if that's on the table, would still provide a superb service and give us a little bit of flexibility. Get ready for when we have to change over to a new contractor at some stage in the future. So I'm quite happy to second your proposal,
Okay,
Madam Chairman.
thank you. Well, my proposal was actually £63 for your first bin and actually £40 for second and third bins. I've got a lot of residents in my village who have 3 brown bins. They have an awful lot of garden waste, clearly, because I don't have that kind of quantity of waste. So we have that as a proposal. Do we want to vote on? Okay. Councillor Pilgrim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have been asked to consider increasing the cost of the garden waste and bulky refuse collection. In the current climate, where there are many residents that are struggling to afford everyday necessities, I believe that increasing these costs would be inappropriate. We need to provide residents with a service that is fair and offers good value for money. And an increase of 13% for garden waste collection is simply unaffordable for many residents. As a result, we are losing valuable garden waste, which is either being discarded in regular bins or improperly thrown into open areas, which is very evident where I live. Why can't we offer a lower fee for residents who receive council tax support or disability benefits? I have looked into garden waste services in other councils, and many provide discounts for seniors over the age of 65 or people receiving means tested benefits. The increase in the bulky refuse charge from £69.50 to £72 is significant and may leave many residents struggling to dispose of their waste responsibly. We should consider implementing a pricing structure similar to that of Sevenoaks Council, which charges different rates based on the number of items being disposed of, whether it be 1 single item, 2, 3 to 4, and 5 to 10 items. Alternatively, we could follow Tunbridge Wells Borough Council's approach, which allows eligible residents to dispose of 1 to 4 items for free once every 90 days.
Can I just interrupt, because you're going through every single item that is on the agenda, and we're literally just talking about garden waste at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, fine.
Save you reading all your speech.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table that we increase the garden waste bin to £63 per year. 63. That's the proposal that has been put forward, with the second bin being second and additional bins £40 per year. That's been proposed and seconded. So that is what we are voting on at the moment. Do this by a show of hands. All those in favour of £63. It's exact £10 increase. That's how it's come about. It's a nice round figure, and it helps us with our MTFS, and it helps us to find the funding. As the chair. Oh, the chair's voting. Thank you. Right, moving on to the next charges, which is your household bulky refuse. You mentioned some of the comments you made. You've already received a reply to that request earlier today, so you know exactly how much it costs, how many people have taken that up, and the issues that we have with what you suggest, because we don't have access to DWP data. So it's not something that we as a council can actually operate, nice an idea as it might be. So because of that, we cannot do what you're suggesting. I'm sorry.
There are other councils that do exactly that. They ask for proof of national insurance number and the relevant number for the benefit that they're receiving, so they can actually clarify that they are in receipt of said benefit.
We're trying to literally just cover our costs for this service. It actually costs us more to collect the bulky items than we actually receive from the residents already. So we aren't really in a position to start offering to do things like that for free to people that are in receipt of certain benefits. The officer time that would be needed to ascertain would then add to the costs already that we're already down on. So it would actually be highly ineffective and not cost efficient to be able to do something like that, I'm afraid. Councillor Hoskins.
Sorry, common sense tells me that if it's possible for other councils to do it, it ought to theoretically, at any rate, be possible for us to do it. Is it possible or is it not? And I'd like an answer from the officer, please.
David, would you like to read out your email that you sent earlier?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Chair. I'll just get that right. I think the response we had from member was asking about how many subsidised bulky collections had 2 or fewer items, and the response was since January 2021, we've had 3,395 bookings on the subsidised rate, and of those, 912 had only had 1 or 2 items collected. But in total, out of those 3,395, almost 2,000 customers had rebooked and used the system, the booking system, more than once over that period. I think the actual response we provided in terms of the policy of extending the reduced or free collections to those in receipt of disability benefit, the question was about how much that would cost to the council, I believe, and what the impact might be. So I interpret that as basically the response I went was not that necessarily a system couldn't be put in place, but that we wouldn't have any idea of the impact of it because the council doesn't hold details of people on disability benefit. So we don't know if there's potentially 1,000 customers that we would need to offer the subsidised service to, or 10,000 or 100. So the answer was that was provided today before this meeting was that we don't know what the potential financial or operational impacts would be. But as officers, we would expect, obviously, if we made it free of charge to the existing council tax reduction residents, or if we were to open up a subsidised scheme to a wider number of benefits, then we don't know what the financial impact would be, but we suspect it would be quite significant, because you'd not only lose the income potentially if you made it free of charge, which I think is about £20,000 a year at the moment for the subsidised scheme, you have increased collection costs by having to widen that subsidised scheme out further. And as the chair rightly pointed out, with the subsidised scheme, it costs we charge less for the subsidised scheme than it actually costs just to provide the service by paying Urbasa per collection.
David, the suggestion on the table is that the current charge of £69.50 for up to 6 items be increased to £72. and the household fridge freezer collection up to 2 items be increased from £42.50 to £44. Is everyone in favour? Agreed? Can everyone put their hands up if they're in favour? And against? Abstentions? 3. Okay, that motion is carried as well. Right, refuse collection charges. On occasion, the waste services team receive requests from customers to empty wheeled bins where the customer has not placed their bin out and has missed the collection. On these occasions, the team are occasionally asked by the customer if they can pay for a one-off return collection. The current charge is £25. We're proposing to increase it by £1 to £26. Is that agreed? Okay, stray dog redemption fees. The Environmental Protection Act prescribes that a person claiming to be the owner of a dog seized as a stray by the council shall not be entitled to the return of the dog unless all the expenses incurred by reason of its detention and such further amount as is for the time being prescribed are met. So the current statutory fee is £25. The proposed fee is also going to remain at £25. If kennelling is required, it's currently at £112.50. And the proposed charge is an additional £3 to £115.50. Is everyone in favour of that charge? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, if people don't pick up that dog, which I see as an increasing thing that happens, what then happens to that dog?
David?
Thank you, Chair. In legal terms, the council has to kennel a dog for 7 straight days following it being picked up. If it's not claimed within that period, on the 8th day, it becomes the property and responsibility of the contracted kennels to rehome the dog or dispose of it elsewhere. Most dogs are rehomed. There are some dogs, because of behavioural issues or medical issues, do have to be put to sleep, but they're sort of single figures basically each year. And they also use rehoming charities, particularly for certain types of dogs like staffies and that sort of thing, which are generally quite difficult to rehome from normal kennels. So they tend to send those to specialist rehoming facilities.
Okay, thank you. So is everyone in favour of those changes to the charges for the stray dog redemption fee? Agreed, thank you. Tunbridge allotment charges. The allotments are managed on the council's behalf by the Tunbridge Allotments and Gardens Association. The charging structure raised annual rents per rod by £1 per annum through to 24-25. They've proposed an increase to the annual rent of £1 per rod for 25-26. Is everyone in favour? Thank you. Tunbridge cemetery charges. The fees are all set out in Annex 1. There are still no fees for burials of under 18s. We are recommending that the rate of increase is by CPI, I believe. Is everyone agreed on, or Councillor? No?
Sorry, another clarification. What is plot 15 in section 1? Single graves, £1,223. Don't tell me it's a big lime pit that.
You, Chair, you know those moments where you wish you had your expert with you. This is unfortunately one of those. So I'd have to come back separately on that item to explain it. Darren has hoped to be here this evening, but unfortunately not able to. So I honestly don't know personally the answer to that question.
Okay. Is everyone in favour of the agreed increase in charges for cemetery fees? Thank you. Pest control. A new contract for pest control comes into place from last Friday. The agreed price for a treatment for rats and mice is £105. It's proposed to continue to subsidise this for residents in receipt of council tax reduction scheme by £55, so the residents will have to pay 50 quid. No, that's council tax reduction. It's not whether they're in receipt of disability benefits. Slightly different. Anyway, condemned food certificates. This is a service available to food businesses in the borough which properly controls the safe surrender and disposal of food deemed by the environmental health staff as unfit for human consumption. Recent years have seen no request for these certificates. The lower income rate is reflected in estimated full year income. So the current charge is £2.20 per first hour plus £2.20 for each additional hour plus VAT. And the proposed charges is for £228 for the first hour plus an additional £228 for each additional hour plus VAT. Is everyone agreed? Exported food certificates. This is a service provided by the Council for food exporters who export food not of animal origin. In this instance, authorised officers from the Borough Council certify that the food products being exported have been manufactured and held under hygienic conditions in accordance with the requirements of Regulation EC 852/2004 and the Food Safety and Hygiene England Regulations of 2013. The level of demand for exported food certificates has slowly declined over the last few years to about 19 per year. Does everyone agree on the charges proposed? Okay. Food hygiene requests for revisits. Food business operators that have made improvements to hygiene standards following their inspection can request a revisit with a view to giving them a new and higher food hygiene rating. There is currently a charge of £215 for this service, which is based on the cost recovery. The proposal is not to increase the fee for 25-26. Is everyone happy with that? Contaminated land. The Environmental Protection Act 1990 Part 2A requires local authorities to implement a system for the identification and remediation of land where contamination is causing a risk to human health or the wider environment because of historical current uses. We would propose to apply a small increase to the current charge to reflect the cost of responding to these requests for information. It's going up from £90 per hour to £100 per hour. Everyone agree? Private water supplies. The regulation of 2009 introduced a statutory and more onerous regime for the risk assessment and sampling of private water supplies. In a report to this board in 2011, it was agreed to introduce a charge to recover the cost of officer time. In addition, owners of private water supplies and private distribution networks will be charged for the cost of sample analysis. We've reviewed the cost of providing this service and proposed to apply a small increase to £90 plus per hour plus the cost of sample analysis. Is everyone agreed? Okay. I think that's it. Thank you very much. We move on to item 10. Oh, no, item 9, sorry, my book's missing. Identification of saving options. The Cabinet have invited all Scrutiny Select Committees to propose options for savings, not costs, savings. Any suggestions to be emailed to the Chair of the Committee and the Director of Finance and Transformation. Does anyone have any ideas off the top of their head that they can think of that would generate income for the Council? Don't all rush at once. Councillor Tanner.
Thank you, Chair. I just really wanted to say that since we requested this, we've had no new suggestions of additional income or cutting costs. And the only person that did come up with something was Councillor Hood, who highlighted the fact that there was a building in Tunbridge that might have been good for purchase to convert into temporary accommodation. Unfortunately, that building is earmarked for something else and we were unable to purchase it. It wasn't available to us to purchase. But the idea was a good one and I appreciate the fact that he brought it forward. So if anybody sees any opportunity in their own wards or has any other general ideas of where we can either increase the money coming in or cut costs, it would really be gratefully received, because we will find out fairly soon that with the new waste contract figures coming in, our funding gap is going to grow significantly. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10 on our agenda is the work programme for 24-25, which is rapidly approaching. We are still waiting for confirmation from Eleanor Hoyle with regard to the, what's it called? Yeah, yes, but it's emergency words. Kent Resilience Forum, we're still waiting on them to come back with their thing, but it is hoped that there is still sufficient time for them to do so, and it will definitely come before us in February. The other thing we will be discussing perhaps is the green infrastructure strategy and the accompanying action plan, and at some stage the waste contract recommissioning options report. We'll have all our KPIs, etc. as well to discuss. That's what's coming up. Agenda item 11, there are no urgent items, and therefore I close the meeting at 20:42.